I pulled over, dimmed the lights, and waited. I checked the schedule. Sure enough, the Monday Night Express should arrive at 10:10 p.m. I checked my watch in less than 5 minutes. The final element of my strategy was about to begin. 5 minutes to wait. 5 minutes to think about it. It was the conclusion of a week of preparing. However, the story began more than a year before then. The first time, I didn't give it much thought. When you've been married for 22 years, you don't expect every occasion to be a marathon. Every once in a while, there comes a point when performance skyrockets. When the situation repeated again, all I could do was apologize. 1 week later, I began to worry. I loathed the thought of losing my ability to pleasure my wife, but losing her even momentarily at that point was an absolute disaster. Our love life deteriorated with the birth of our first kid. Erica constantly seemed exhausted. At the very least, that was the reason. I would be shocked if we could do it once a month. It seems that the kid had taken all of her love, leaving nothing for me. My second son was born 18 months later, so I must have moved on. As the boys grew older and less demanding, I anticipated things to improve. But I was mistaken. I found it difficult to take rejection, so I avoided it by giving her time to sleep before going to bed myself. I was profoundly saddened when I realized she didn't want me as much as I wanted her. But marriage isn't just about having fun, is it? I could make do with once every few weeks. What mattered most was that we loved one another. At least, I believed we did. Things began to change when my youngest son, James, went to university. We began spending more time together. Erica began to express more emotions. A fortnight was no longer sufficient, and we were soon doing it 2 or 3 times every week. It quickly became even more regular. It felt like we were newlyweds again. I loved it. Not only was it fun, but it seemed like we were bonding. I felt loved for the first time in many years. I began to worry when she told me she still needed more after my proposal. She visited the doctor. When I arrived home that evening, she seemed slightly melancholy. The doctor informed her that she was starting menopause. According to our doctor, it was her body's way of dealing with the reality that she would soon become sterile. Her body was giving her the best shot of conceiving before the egg stopped coming. He said it will only last a year or 18 months and recommended her to wait it out. As a man, I did not view this as an issue. "I am going to be infertile," she whined. "It's like the conclusion of something spectacular. I underwent a vasectomy 15 years ago. I did it because you disliked the pill and other forms of contraception. We tried. That was the end of my baby-making days. I don't recall being this moody. You wouldn't be, right? You are a man. It is not that significant to you. Wait, what I mean is that being able to have children is really essential to men. It's part of his life's purpose. That's why I was so hesitant to undergo a vasectomy. We decided no. You decided you did not want any more children. You are now grumbling since you will soon be unable to have any more children. That sounds like whining to me because someone is taking something you don't want. I knew you would not comprehend. I tried a different approach. I apologize, Rick. I actually am. But I can see the upside. No more period discomfort or premenstrual tension. That is probably something to look forward to. He stated you would only be like Way for another year. That is comfortable. Surely. I suppose so. I hadn't given it much thought, but it felt like a huge blow at the time. I sat down next to her and placed my arm around her shoulders. "You will be back to normal after a year. Doesn't this make you feel better?" "No, not really. I enjoy feeling this way. I told you I needed more than you could provide. It is not your fault. You cannot be with me all day. I need to do it. It sounds like you are barely in control, and you're saying you don't want it to end." I heard an owl swoop, which brought me back to the present. I looked at the clock. 10:15 p.m. Where the heck was that train? The express is never late. I peered down again, but there was no sign of anything. The night surrounding me was pitch black. There was no sign of a person. I felt called. My left hand was particularly cold. I could have restarted the engine and warmed up the vehicle again, but I did not want to draw attention to myself. I just chose to wait. The train might be a little late, but it will arrive. My anxieties will shortly be alleviated. My personal calamity happened while I was attempting to deal with Erica's unrestrained desire. Erica knew everything when I initially lost my sensitivity. She claimed it was her fault. I was quite demanding. However, as it got more frequent, she became increasingly upset. I intended to see a doctor. But before I scheduled the appointment, Erica handed me a pack of Viagra. Erica, I need to speak with a doctor. These may not be the answers. Yes, they can be, and what's the harm in attempting it? If this does not help, see a doctor. I didn't understand my dilemma well enough to fight with her, and I recognized the logic in her statements. Our lovemaking was already lacking spontaneity, and having to take the pill a half hour prior made matters worse. The good news was that they were working. I was even able to deal with the adverse effects. Every morning my face burned, my nose stuffed up, and I awoke with a hangover. They did, however, help for a while. After a few weeks, the problem resurfaced, so I upped the dosage. I got to the maximum dose, yet the problem persisted. My coworkers realized something was awry. You cannot go to work, hungover every day without anyone noticing a drop in performance. Eugenia Vinicius, a stunning Cypriot woman, and I worked in the same office. Eugenia was a stunning woman, 5 feet tall and thin. We'd been friends since I started college, and she'd expressed an interest in continuing the connection on several occasions. One day she came in and gazed at me. Kevin Johnson, when are you and I going to start having an affair? Don't even make such a joke. Who claimed I was joking? I adore Erica. I'd never cheat on her. Besides, I can barely afford one woman, let alone several. I chuckled, but there was clearly energy between us. Eugenia, at 32, was already dealing with her own challenges. Neville, her ex-husband, had manipulated her and then threatened her with self-destructive behavior. He was 6 inches tall, a forward for the local rugby team and a junior school administrator. I had been there for her through everything. Now she saw a chance to repay me in kind. Kev, are you having trouble at home? She asked. No. What made you say that? Come on. You scarcely drink at all. Now you come here every day, hungover. Something must be quite horrible for you to be hitting the bottle. Look, Jean, I am not hitting the bottle. It's a side effect of the medications. So what medicines are you on? I had to tell her the entire tale. She was horrified. She prescribed you Viagra. Have you visited a doctor? You might have a cardiac issue, Kevin. She may kill you. You should stop taking them until you see a doctor. I am able to quit. They no longer help. Eugenia grabbed me firmly and made me promise to get checked out. Things were getting progressively worse at home. I need a man, Kevin. I scheduled a doctor's appointment for the following day, but on Friday, the earliest I could get in was Tuesday. Erica would not wait that long. That evening, I waited until she went to bed, then quickly followed her. I was astonished to see the light turned on in the other room. I was even more astonished when I passed past the door and saw Erica climb into the vacant bed. What's happening? Why are you asleep here? You cannot do something for me that I am unable to do on my own. Honestly, you're just getting in the way. At least, this way. I do not have to put up with your snoring. I went to bed alone, feeling as bad as a man could possibly feel about himself, unable to carry out the most basic function of a guy lying in bed alone. I attempted unsuccessfully to sleep about 3 a.m., her words still echoing in my thoughts. I saw how things actually were. She had told me she needed a male, but now she was moving away from me. Was it possible that someone else was holding her or offering whatever else I couldn't? For the majority of the weekend, Erica avoided me. On Saturday, she went shopping all day but didn't seem to buy much. On Sunday, she attended church and did not return till the evening. I should have spoken to her, but I was unsure. I wanted to know where she'd been. Furthermore, I was quite fatigued. I was certain she had located a replacement and asked if I needed any other proof. It arrived Monday night. When I found Erica, she was packing her suitcase. Where are you going, Rick? Kevin, I'm sorry, but things aren't working out anymore. I need more than you can provide, which isn't much. Do not do that, Erica. The difficulty is probably only temporary. Things will return to normal soon. I realize it's only temporary, but I'll still need entertainment from time to time. I was discussing my problem, not yours. At some point in their lives, most men experience erectile dysfunction. It is usually only temporary. She paused, packing for a second to hug me. I hope so, Kevin. I really do. I know you love me, and I'm sorry to do this to you. But he's younger and more solid. He brings me somewhere you'd never go. It is not your fault. I just need him now. Soon it will be over. My libido will subside or he will become tired of me, and we can return to normal. We aren't in love or anything. She released go of me and returned to her stuff. I left her there and walked down. It took slightly more than half an hour for her to come at the top of the stairs with 2 enormous luggage, an overnight bag, and a large policeman. She started with the smaller bag and noticed me watching her. "Erica, it won't hurt you to help me. I won't do anything to help you leave this house. If you go, you'll be on your own." She walked down the stairs carrying the small suitcase to her car. When she returned, she glared at me, expecting that I would succumb. But I did not. She demonstrated how heavy the bags were and how tough it was to take them to the car by carrying the last bag to the front door. She paused and looked back at me. "It doesn't have to be like this, you understand? It's not like it lasts forever. Can't you just be relieved that I found someone to take your load? Please do not do this, Erica. We can make it through this. We both understand you are not doing this for me. If you stay, we will still have a chance, but if you leave now, you will not return here. Are you planning to do this, or am I?" I held up my cell phone to her. She looked at the screen and saw her cell phone number appear. "What are you talking about now? I am deleting you from my phone and my life. Are you going to do it or am I? Stop being so theatrical, Kevin." She was already beginning to yell. "Of course, I will come back. I simply need a real dude right now, not a weak excuse." She paused midway through, realizing what she had said. "I apologize, Kevin. That's not what I intended." "No, you finally expressed what you meant." She turned and went away, tears in her eyes. I tapped a button on my phone and the number disappeared. The door closed and I turned on the deadbolt that night. I felt a broad spectrum of emotions. At first, I was furious. How could she have done this to me? I had given her 20 of the best years of my life, but she would lash out at the first indication of trouble. For better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness or health, and of course in denial of all else. How could she expect me to sit around and wait for her to return? I tried to think about what I would do. I'd find her young boyfriend and destroy him. I'd kick her out. All of this went through my mind, and I attempted to convince myself that I would do it all. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. As I tried to sleep, I got increasingly melancholy. Everything I could think of made me feel more miserable. I must have been asleep, as I believe I was dreaming. My classmates were laughing at poor old Kev, who was unable to get up. I observed Erica and her partner laughing about how much she missed having a real male. Erica was telling my son about how their lousy father had let her down when she needed him the most. When dawn arrived, I fought to get out of bed. I made coffee but did not feel like eating. I called the college and informed them that I was sick, and then I just stayed at home. I wanted to cry, but my tears would not flow. By lunchtime, I could no longer operate regularly. The ringing of my phone, which I couldn't find anywhere, jolted me back into reality. After removing all the pillows from the couch, I discovered Erica's phone. It was the first thing that motivated me. I took it up, went to the bathroom, and lowered myself into the toilet. I realized I needed to protect myself and my sons. I assumed I could trust Erica, but I had no idea who her lover was, so I wanted to protect my finances. Obviously, I needed to visit the bank. The personnel at the bank were unexpectedly helpful with their recommendations. I opened a bank account in my name and deposited enough money to meet my expenses for 1 month. I then withdrew my name from the joint checking account we had always shared. I depleted our savings account. Erica and her boyfriend were fully capable of having a wonderful time, but they refused to do so with my money from home. I contacted the insurance company that handled my life insurance. I was astonished at how simple it was to modify the beneficiary region from Erica to equal shares for my sons. The next day, I returned to work. Between lectures, I stopped by the HR department to have my paycheck deposited into my new account. I followed the same procedure with the college insurance that I did with the life insurance policy on Friday. I was able to meet with an attorney and amend my will. That is what prompted me to wait for the train on Monday night. I had no idea why I was so cold, and my heartburn was killing me. It happened just as I was checking my watch again. I heard a bell ring, red lights flashed, and the barrier lowered behind me. I turned to look at the track and saw the train approaching the corner. It would shortly be over. My misery was almost done. Something wasn't right. The train moved much more slowly than normal. Furthermore, it appeared to be getting slower in the distance. However, in my direction, 2 blue lights were flashing. The heartburn worsened and I held my chest. Suddenly, flashing blue lights emerged in the rearview mirror. A police car had stopped on the opposite side of the barrier. I wanted to start the car and hurry away, but I couldn't take my hand off my chest. Two officers approached the automobile, with one tapping on the glass. But I did not move. The heartburn was worsening. The cop asked if I was all right, but I could only gaze at him. I am unable to keep my eyes open. As the cop continued to speak, I passed out. I recall nurses fussing over me, machines beeping, and physicians poking and prodding me as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Soft lips touched my forehead. A kind hand held mine. But then I left again. Bright sunlight flooded through the blinds, beckoning me back to reality. My eyelids flickered open and I gazed up at the foggy world. I focused and immediately recognized the television screen over my bed, as well as the room's magnolia-colored walls. Someone was next to me, so I looked around. The nurses were busy in their seats. I looked the other way, and there she was. "Welcome back," she said. "You made us worried for a while." I stared at her stunning face. Her huge brown eyes reflected so much affection. "Eugenia, what are you doing here?" "So someone had to be here. James is arriving this weekend. Peter requested that I keep him informed, and he will arrive as soon as possible. It's a great distance from Durham, but how did you find out?" "I received a call from the hospital. My number was the only female one on your phone. They assumed I was your wife when they called. I assumed it was about my ex-husband. When I realized it was you, I had to come over." "How long have I been here?" 2 days. I've been here between courses and talks. The college has handled it quite well. They can't wait for your return, and some of your students want to join you while you're in uniform." "Erica, I don't think she knows. She hasn't called you and isn't home. I'm not trying to hide it from her, and I'm not going to look for her. I believe she's the reason you're here." She squeezed my hand and tenderly kissed my lips as she stared at the computer screen. A smile flashed across her face. "You should be getting better. Your heart rate increased by 10 beats per minute when I performed it. Now I need to return to work for a bit. I'll be back this afternoon to see what the doctors say about you." Eugenia returned to me as the lead surgeon was doing his rounds after lunch and proceeded to explain what he had done. "You're quite lucky, Mr. Johnson. You were fortunate that someone discovered you at the right time, and fortunate that I had a very difficult day and was still present when you were admitted. We did an emergency bypass surgery on you. You'll be in a lot of discomfort for a while, but everything looks fine. I'm surprised by how well everything turned out. You had no symptoms. You must have felt a lot of suffering." "Not really, doctor. I've been experiencing a lot of indigestion recently, heartburn, but I didn't think much of it. At my age, you sort of anticipate it. I'm experiencing shortness of breath and continual weariness, but I attributed it to a sedentary lifestyle." The doctor simply shook his head. "You don't have any issues in the bedroom?" "Yes, but I used Viagra for it." "Viagra? Are you crazy? Who prescribed these for you?" "Nobody. My wife purchased them online. Damn internet pharmacies. If it were up to me, I'd turn them all off tomorrow." He turned to Eugenia. "I hope you are satisfied, Mrs. Johnson. Your husband was extremely close to dying. If he had simply gone to the doctor, none of this would have occurred." "Wait a minute, doctor," I yelled back at him. "That woman is not my wife. It is not her fault in any way. It's both mine and my wife's fault." However, Eugenia insisted that I visit the doctor. I was the one who saw no use in it. "I understand it is your responsibility to save me, but honestly, I wish you hadn't bothered." "Eugenie." His face was immediately angry. "Kevin Johnson, how can you be so selfish? How about your family? Are they not important at all?" "No. The lads will be upset for a while, but they will overcome it. I have supplied for them. It's only money, Kevin. They don't need money. They need you. What about their children's upbringing without a grandfather? What about me? We all need you, Kevin. And don't try to argue he shouldn't have bothered. If you say something like that again, you will never see me again." She wanted the doctor to speak with her alone. He glanced to me for confirmation. "Sure, Doc. Go ahead. You'll probably make more use of her than I do right now. And as for my wife, you will have to find her first." Eugenia placed her hand on his arm and accompanied him to the room. When she returned, the fury in her eyes was still visible. "She left you, didn't she? Is that truly a reason to wish to die? That, to me, is cause for celebration. You do not know why she departed." "I can't do it anymore. Even with Viagra, I cannot perform the basic functions of a man." I do not blame her for leaving. I blame her. She left a sick man. Even if she was not aware of your heart problem, she was well aware of what it was and how it was affecting you. All she did was escalate the situation, making it worse. And now she's gone out of her way to indulge her selfish needs. Kevin, don't defend her to me. I'm not prepared to listen. Perhaps you are. However, the truth is that I am no longer useful to you. You cannot say that. You'll probably be all right when they interact with you. Most women require more than that, regardless. She sat next to the bed, holding my hand, and told me everything that had transpired at work. She was still present when the cops arrived to speak with me. I made it plain that I wanted her to stay while I spoke with them. They questioned why I had halted on the railroad rails. I didn't know where I'd stopped the police. Something went horribly wrong, so I pulled over before I got into an accident. I see, sir. So can you explain why you shut out the lights? No, I cannot. I suppose it was habit. I suppose. You know, you stop your automobile, turn off the engine, and turn off the headlights. You understand, sir, that we must report this to the licensing authority. You will need a doctor's note before you may drive again. I fully understand, officer. I suppose I was really lucky. Please thank the guys that found me. All okay, sir. We will now. We'd best give you some rest. They turned to depart when I realized there was something I needed to know. Officers, please tell me what happened to my car. It's in the police station, sir. You will have to pay the expense of recovery, but you can have it back now if that is all. We will leave you alone. I turned to look at Eugenia. Her hands had covered her eyes, and I could hear her sobbing. When I reached for her, she pulled away. Were you truly going to do it? You are foolish, guy. You sat around hoping to get hit by a speeding train. Why, Kevin? Why? Because of the boys. If it had been an accident, they would have received a significantly larger insurance settlement. You do not have to talk about it. Lee, this is so ordinary. You attempted to murder yourself. I apologize. I simply cannot deal with it. With tears in her eyes, she dashed out of the room, nearly avoiding the porters while carrying in the dinner cart. Eugenia disappeared that evening. In fact, she did not return until the following afternoon. She gave me a smile that could have melted a glacier. No, I don't believe I've forgiven you for taking yourself to this point without consulting me. I thought we were pals. I apologize, Jean. I was truly not thinking clearly at the time. You are my best friend. I should have spoken to you. Is this all I am, Kevin? A friend. Right now, Jean, you are my best friend. I can't say any more than that. I'm just perplexed about how I'm still meant to be a married man. Married? Do you still consider yourself married to her after she left you? After she made you feel unworthy, she went off to find another guy. I will tell you what, Kevin Johnson, there's much more to being a man than that. If she cannot see this, she does not deserve you. How long have you been here? 4 days. And she hasn't called you? She probably doesn't even realize I'm here. Wake up and smell the coffee, Kevin. If she cared about you, she would have contacted your house. And when there was no answer, she would have called your cell phone. If she wasn't a selfish jerk, she'd know. I guess me flushing her cell phone down the toilet didn't help. Didn't help. I'm afraid it did help. It was the day after she left. It kept ringing. And when I found it under the cushions on the couch, I flushed it down the toilet. I think she must have come back looking for it. Someone was in the house cleaning last Wednesday. Tears came to her eyes, and when she started to laugh, they ran down her cheek. I'm sorry, Kevin, but that's so funny. If she's like me, her whole life will be on that phone. Appointments, birthdays, her phone, book, everything. Everything will go down the toilet. You really are an evil person. She stood up and got ready to leave. I'm going home. The college will not tolerate a lack of training just because you were in the hospital. I'll be back tomorrow. Think about what I said. I watched her walk away in her high heels. The guy on the bed next to mine looked at me. If my wife wiggled her butt like that, I'd have a heart attack too. Buddy, no wonder you're here. She's not my wife, just a pal. Pull the other leg. It's got bells on it. If she's just a friend, I'm a monkey's uncle. I've seen the way she looks at you. I wish she would look at me like that. Trust someone who's been there. She wants to be more than a friend. And if you don't do anything about it, you'll end up an even bigger fool than I thought. I thought about Eugenia. I definitely found her attractive, as most men did. I liked her as a person. She was fun. A little testy at times, but always funny. Was I in love with her? I didn't know. We only knew each other through work. There was a time when I helped her deal with her ex-husband, but that was 2 years ago. That was when I came closest to being a part of her personal life. Now it seemed she wanted to be a part of mine. The next day, my son Peter came over to see me. He looked more than upset. "What's going on, Dad? Where's Mom?" I got no answer. When I called home and her cell phone went straight to voicemail. "I don't know where she is. She didn't say where she was going. She just left." "You mean she left you? What did you do?" I told him pretty much the whole story, omitting the moment when I waited on the track for the express from Exeter. He looked shocked when it all came out. "Darn it, Dad. I knew you and Mom were doing it in the bedroom. I heard your conversations at night during summer vacation. I was proud of you. I thought it was great that you still loved each other so much, Peter. Things aren't always what they seem. We've been estranged for a long time. I think you boys were what really kept us together. Things have started to get better in the last few months, and it's brought us back together. I was hoping for a happy life together. It all went wrong when I started having problems in the bedroom. Apparently, it was related to the illness that got me here. That's when I realized she didn't need me. She needed any man who could do the job. It was fine the whole time I was in demand. But as soon as I stopped coping, she left. I don't believe that, Dad. Did you try to talk to her? If she knew you were sick, I'm sure she'd be here. I can't talk to her. I don't know where she is. She hasn't made contact with me. Cell phones aren't allowed here because they think they interfere with the monitors. I've turned mine on a couple of times, but the only missed calls are from you and David." I gradually turned the conversation over to Erica. I told him as much as I could about my condition and assured him that I would be back to normal soon before he left. I made him promise not to tell Erica about my illness. "No, Dad, she has a right to know. You can't expect me to keep it from her." "Okay, son. I'll meet you halfway. I won't ask you to lie to her if she asks you about me. You can tell her, but only if she asks." I suppose that's fair enough. I got the impression. "You don't think she'll ask?" "No, I don't. She can't ask without saying she doesn't live with me. I think if she was going to do that, she would have done it by now." Peter stayed with me until noon when Eugenia came in. I introduced her as a co-worker. Peter threw me a questioning look but said nothing until she left us alone. "Be honest with me, Dad. This woman, Eugenia, did she have anything to do with Mom leaving?" "No," I said firmly. "She's my friend and co-worker, and she's been very supportive of me. She was the one who called you and James when they brought me here. I wasn't in any condition to tell them anything. Her number was the only female number on my phone. The hospital thought she was my wife, so they called her. She's been handling everything for me ever since. She's helped me a lot. But if you think she came between me and your mother, you're wrong. Now try to behave like the gentleman I brought you up to be." Peter was a little warmer with Eugenia when she returned. Eugenia seemed pleased with the change in his attitude. He thanked her before leaving, and she packed him on the cheek. She stayed with me until the evening and then left to get ready for class. Over the next week, I underwent several tests, and eventually all the monitoring equipment was removed. When the surgeon came to see me, I was a different person. I thanked him for the excellent job he had done in keeping me alive. "Are you feeling more positive now, Mr. Johnson? I have some news that may help you feel even better. Our tests show that you have a testosterone deficiency. That's not uncommon in men your age. The good news is we can treat it easily. I can't promise anything. But combined with your heart condition, it explains your problems in the bedroom. If you fix it for me, I'll be even more grateful." I mentioned this to Eugenia when she came in that evening. She teased me, asking me if it was still working. She kept threatening to pull up the bedspread and take a look. When my morning glory returned, I kept her to myself. She still spent a couple of hours a day with me, insisted on talking to the doctors, and made friends with all the nurses. I was a little surprised to find that I had to solve a problem for the head of the department. Eugenia was so popular with the nursing staff that they told her things they shouldn't have told anyone but relatives. Do you see my problem, Mr. Johnson? All the staff can see that she has your best interests at heart. But they are not supposed to tell her what they are doing without your consent. Of course, if you gave your permission, it would solve a lot of problems for me. First of all, sister, call me Kevin. Everyone else does. Now, do you need me to sign something, or will my verbal consent suffice? No, there is no need for written consent if you agree to let her know everything. Well, sister, I would like you to treat Mrs. Vanessa's the same way you treat my wife. Would that solve your problem? Yes, it would indeed, thank you. I was there for 10 days, and the pain from the surgery began to go away. The doctor gave me seemingly good news but left me with the problem. I was well enough to go home as long as there was someone there to care for me. The problem was that I had no one. I didn't know whether I should lie and go home or tell the truth and stay in the hospital. When Eugenia came to see me in the evening, I discussed the matter with her. The doctor said I could go home tomorrow after my stitches are removed. The problem is that I have to tell them that someone will look after me. I don't like to lie, then don't lie. But that means she reached out and put a finger to my lips before asking a question. Many men would give their teeth to hear. Kevin, how would you feel about me moving in with you for a while? Jean. You know I'm not supposed to exert myself, right? She slapped my arm. Of course I know, that's why I asked. The doctor said you can go home, but only if there's someone there to look after you. I want to be that someone if you'll let me. Can you handle all that healthy Mediterranean food and me waiting for you? I laughed. Well, if it means you get out of here, I'm sure I can handle it. Good, because if everything is okay tomorrow, the stitches will come out and I'll take you home. I reached out and took her hand. Jean, the other day, you asked me if you were just a friend to me. You are a friend, a very good friend. But you mean more to me than that? Right now, I'm still a little confused. The last 2 weeks have been pretty hard on me. I've been a husband for too long to think about relationships with other women. If you're willing to put up with the fact that this old man might fall in love with his nurse, I'd be very happy to have you as my nurse. She gave me a sly smirk. You're just trying to get me to wear a uniform. Give me the keys to the house. If you're going home tomorrow, I need to get ready and buy a nurse's uniform. She held out her hand as I rummaged through my locker and finally pulled out my house keys. Now you just be good and I'll pick you up tomorrow afternoon. The next morning I got out of bed and was fully dressed before breakfast. I shaved and generally tried to look as dressed up and trim as possible. The nurses were impressed and all left comments before the doctor's rounds. I had another electrocardiogram, which the doctor studied before turning his attention to me. He looked at my scar and listened to my chest before giving me the good news. So, Mr. Johnson, are we still positive? Absolutely, Doc. I'm looking forward to coming home. I'm told there's someone at home to look after you, so I think we can discharge you today. I should instill in you that you should take it easy for the next 2 weeks. After that, we'll start doing some gentle exercises, and then we'll move on to a fitness regimen in a couple of months. He shook my hand and wished me well. Come on, Mr. Johnson. The nurse is here to take you home. The ride home was amusing, to say the least. We sat on the couch and watched TV when it was time to go to bed. She helped me up the stairs. When we got to my bedroom, she said, "Good night. And Jean, thank you for being so like this. Go to bed, Mr. Johnson, before the nurse decides she knows better." As the sun began to creep into my bedroom, I felt some movement on the bed next to me. I opened my eyes, looked up, and saw a woman sitting on the bed next to me. When I was fully awake, I realized that Eugenia was sitting next to me. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Time to wake up and smell the coffee to make it easier. I made it, so sit down and enjoy it." I rose to a sitting position and took the cup of coffee. She offered. One of the things I really missed in the hospital was a good cup of coffee. This is actually really good. I was half expecting Greek coffee full of sugar and dirt on the bottom. I've worked with you for 6 years now. I think I know what kind of coffee you like. She set her cup down and turned to me. She ran her finger over the scar. It's healing nicely, but it still looks a little angry. After breakfast, she gave me a quick kiss. In the morning, I typed up my email and was about to make lunch when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Alan and Daniel, 2 of my best students, standing on the doorstep holding 2 pizza boxes. Pizza delivery. They shouted as I looked at them in surprise. "Come on, Kev. Let's go make some coffee and get some lunch." I refilled the coffee maker, turned it on, and all 3 of us sat around the table eating slices of pizza. "Eugenia gave us instructions for you not to do anything," said Daniel to me. "Yeah, you've been hiding things from us. Have joined in, Alan. You 2 have something going on, don't you? Come on, guys. A gentleman doesn't talk about things like that. Then we'll take that as a yes." Alan laughed. "Hey, that's one of your professors you're talking about. Show some respect." "Yes, but that doesn't stop her from being beautiful, does it?" I changed the subject and asked them who had taken over my classes and inquired how they were doing. They weren't impressed. The college had hired a temporary replacement, and the students were unhappy with his level of expertise. He didn't seem to care about keeping up with new developments and only knew text-based solutions to any problems. My more advanced students were used to thinking for themselves. We had a saying, the right solution is the one that works. I made a mental note to contact the department chair and suggest that he assign and review the assignments. The idea that my students could be penalized for knowing too much was unacceptable to me. Kev. Daniel said, I don't suppose you're going to let us drop in here for informal classes from time to time. We'll bring lunch and grab a beer. I don't see why not, Dan. It would be the perfect job. I'll only teach students who really want to learn, and they come to me on their own. What could possibly be wrong with that? Well, the fact that I don't get paid is a bit of a hindrance, but it does. I'm on sick leave, so I'm paid to the fullest. Is it okay if we bring a few more people with us next time? That's how I came to be in charge of the unofficial college application. Within 2 weeks, I was busy 3 days a week. Eugenia wasn't too pleased when the girls in the class started coming to me, being at home all day. I didn't use my cell phone too much, so I left. It turned off at Gina's suggestion. I let the answering machine answer my home calls. She didn't want me to rush to the phone and discover it was a call from the marketing department. Peter and James knew that as soon as they started talking, I would answer. However, 1 or 2 of the callers were simply moaning in anger or attempting to communicate through the machine. The evening after the boys arrived, she made me a delicious carbonara, and we cuddled on the couch after. When I went to bed, she led me to the bedroom door. The temptation was overwhelming for me. Do you want to come over to my apartment tonight? Kevin, you say the most lovely things. I see that as a no. Are you kidding? I've been looking for an invitation like this for a long time. She took my hand and guided me to my room. It does not require much imagination to figure out what happened next. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of a knife against a cutting board in the kitchen. Eugenia soon came in front of me holding 2 cups of coffee. She sat down next to me. I have liked you since we started working together. I fell in love with you when you came with me to transfer all of my belongings out of the house we shared with Neville. I believed I was going to die when he began threatening you. But you got between us and instructed him to act his age, not his shoe size. He was much larger than you and much stronger, but you stood up to him and he backed down. He didn't dare to hit me. He would have lost his job and been unable to work in education again. If he had been convicted of violence before, most guys would have backed down. But not you. You ignored all of the taunts and accusations and instructed him to speak out. If we took anything we weren't supposed to, yes. But weren't you astonished when he pointed to you and said, She is my wife. You have no right to kidnap her. That's what hit me as I heard your response. My heart raced in my chest and I realized I desired you. I don't recall that moment. What made what I said so special? You've simply stopped. I looked him straight in the eye and said, no, she was your wife. But she is no more. If you see a wife as a commodity, like a vehicle or a coffee table, you shouldn't have married. I knew immediately away you were the man I needed. Smart, caring, loyal, and fearless. More than gorgeous and respectful of a woman's virtues. You are slightly overweight, but I can help with that. The only downside was that you were already married. We went to breakfast and I discovered what this was all about. Eugenia had prepared a refreshing fruit salad with Greek yogurt. I stared at it with surprise. She realized she wasn't used to starting the day like this. I told you this would be a nutritious lunch presently. Do not worry. Eggs and bacon will not be completely off the menu, but we will attempt to modify your diet. That is all right with me. But don't expect me to start enjoying cornflakes. Then provide me a list of what you don't like, and I'll arrange meals. Keep it in mind. We sat down and enjoyed our meal after I added a slice of toast. It turned out great as we enjoyed our coffee. I returned to our chat in bed. So if Erica hadn't left me, would you still be waiting? I suppose so. I felt something wasn't right at home. You never mentioned anything, but all of our chats revealed that you were not getting what you wanted out of your marriage. It was only a matter of time before the crack expanded in all directions. And all along, I had no idea. Why should you? I did not run after you or do anything like. She stood up and put away the dishes. Well, one of us has to go to work, so I should get going. I stretched out for her hand and kissed it. Thanks, Jean. Thank you for everything. She smiled, kissed me, and then departed. When it was time to return for her checkup, she took the day off and joined me. I underwent a series of testing, including the obligatory EKG. They put me on the treadmill for 10 minutes, then repeated all of the tests. And this was before I ever met with a counselor. When I did get to see him, he extended his hand to me, which I shook. Are things going well, Mr. Johnson? Yes. Thank you, doctor. And no more pain? No, everything is great. I feel better now than I have in a long time. What about the other small issue? Is there any improvement? The issues in the bedroom appear to be behind me. I'm delighted to hear that. Your test findings are quite encouraging. We can wait another 2 months before I see you again. Meanwhile, I have scheduled an appointment for you to see a physical therapist. They will devise a workout routine for you. We need to ensure that we don't see you again for a time. I was relieved that the physiotherapists did not suggest me to go to the gym. I couldn't stand all the competitive muscle-flexing exercises. A really sweet person suggested that I start with brisk walking every day. Cycling and swimming were also encouraged. Eugenia clearly wanted to ask a question when she asked it. She managed to confound both myself and the physical therapist. "What about love?" she asked. The poor girl's face flushed scarlet and she coughed. "Well, it's good exercise," she responded, regaining her calm. "As long as it raises your heart rate for 5 minutes or more, leave it to me. I'll make his heart work." The girl grinned at her. "Yes, I am sure of it." Eugenia wrapped her arm around my waist and pulled me close to her as we walked out of the hospital. "See," she said, "I am going to be so good for you." The weeks following my hospitalization were among the happiest of my life. Eugenia picked up my car at the police station, and after receiving a note from my doctor, I received my license back. Having my automobile back was more of a relief. I started leaving it in the garage more frequently than before. I'm not sure when it happened, but within a few weeks I began checking my watch, waiting for Eugenia to get home. We would go for a walk in the evenings instead of watching television. On Saturday mornings, we went swimming. It was an exercise that I always enjoyed. Erica has always disliked swimming. She was frightened her head would sink under the water. I quit going because, like many things, it's not fun to do alone. Eugenia was the complete opposite. She was not frightened of anything. She liked being in the water and couldn't wait to splash me as I approached. "See, I've told you. I said I'd make you adore me." She was correct. She had truly gotten through to me. I realized why I couldn't wait for her to get home. I felt better than I have in years. Her smile warmed me. I had forgotten what it meant to be in love. But in the pool on Saturday morning, I realized I was with my new love, my personal college to keep me occupied, and a new level of personal fitness. I was on top of the world. The boys would soon return home for the summer, and I was busy preparing the house for their arrival Friday afternoon. I was busy decorating. I had just finished applying gloss paint to the wood trim when I heard someone attempt to open the front door. I stood up, dipped my brush in white spirit, and returned to the door. She began cursing when I opened the door. "Hello, Rick. What brought you here?" "I reside here." "But what are you doing at home? I am on sick leave, and to correct your statement." "No, you do not reside here. You used to live here before you left, right? Did you go in quest of better pastures or harder penises? If you are going to be disrespectful, I will return later and let you in. You wouldn't do that with those keys?" "I replaced the locks." "You did what? Why did you do that?" "I promised you I'd come back, and I told you that if you walked out the door, you would not return." I suppose that was simple enough to understand. "Kevin, can we just go inside and discuss this?" I opened the door wide and she grabbed her suitcase. I started closing the door. "The suitcase will stay. You can enter, but you cannot return." As she walked in, tears welled up in her eyes. We proceeded into the dining room, and I signaled for her to sit. When I sat down, the coffee machine had already started bubbling. "So, Erica, what do you want?" I arrived home. The doctor was correct. My libido is beginning to wane, and I can now cope. That should be comforting for anybody you get along with. Tears started to pour, and black mascara spilled down her face. I recognized for the first time that she had made a concerted effort to appear good for this encounter. I poured coffee, handed her a cup, and sat across from her again. She wiped her eyes with the napkin. "Why are you doing this, Kevin? It's unlike you. I hurt you and really regret it. If I had reason, I would not have done it. However, my hormones were in control. I love you. I know you adore me. Can't we just focus on putting this behind us? You are mistaken on both counts. You do not love me. Maybe you did it once, but not for long. As for my feelings for you, I loved you. I actually did. I unbuttoned my shirt, revealing a scar on my chest. They unlocked my heart, and all of my love for you spilled forth. She raised her hand to her mouth. What happened? Why did no one tell me about this? I told you what had happened. They opened my heart and brought me back from the brink. I'm sure the hospital wanted to call you, but we knew where you were. If you had attempted to call here, I would have informed you. Face it, Rick. You were too preoccupied to worry about me. No, it was not like that. I lost my cell phone and had to buy another. I only had this awful machine. Your cell phone is constantly turned off, and the girl at the college switchboard simply says she won't answer your call. And here I thought you were simply distracted by some imbecile. Stop it, Kevin. You talk so nasty, you should have told the boys. You don't believe they had the right to know you were unwell, do you? Eugenia informed them. Peter even paid me a visit in the hospital. Why didn't they tell me? I would have come if I had known. I asked them not to inform you unless you specifically asked about me. I guess you never said I couldn't. I did not want them to know what I'd done. They know I told Peter everything, and James contacted me to inquire about it. I do not believe you. I do not believe you told them everything. What about your minor problem? Have you told them about it? I told them everything. Even so, I was a poor excuse for a guy. No, they're going to detest me. How will I face them when they get home? That will not be an issue. You will not be here. I heard the sound of a key in the lock. I got up and walked out into the corridor. Eugenia walked through the open door. When she noticed me standing at the dining room door, she ran down the hallway, leaped up, and threw her legs and arms around my neck. I missed you. Have you missed me? Of course. But we must behave. We have a guest. She gazed across the dining room. It is not a guest. It's your wife. Erica sat there, mouth gaping, barely able to suppress her awe. Eugenia threw her legs off the bed and stood with her arms wrapped around me as Erica recovered her composure. And what's she doing here? And why does she have a key? She resides here, which I cannot say about you. Erica wasn't going to give up. She fired the first volley while looking Eugenia full in the eye. Thank you for looking after him, my dear, but you can go home now. I will take it from here. You see, Kevin has a minor issue that he has obviously not informed you of. You should get back to your boyfriend. I'm confident he can take better care of you than Kevin can. I believe Kevin has everything I need. Thank you. Erica was taken aback a second time. Eugenia only smiled at her. So I guess some girls have it while others don't. I am heading upstairs to change. I'll leave you to cope with everything here using those words. Eugenia turned to run up the steps. Erica's face showed surprise. Are you entirely recovered? I is recovering, but things are better in the pants category than I can recall. So as you can see, you do not belong here. But Kevin, I love you. Can't we return to the way things were? I can become a better wife. I truly can. It is too late for that, Rick. You could not love me while doing what you did. Why don't you return to Mr. Stiff Privates and let him make you happy? This triggered another bout of tears. This time, there were very profound sobbing and tears. I brought her some tissues, and as the sobbing lessened, she wiped her tears. So, what happened? I asked. Surely Stiff Privates will be relieved to have his body returned. Erica sat up and shook her head. I can't come back. His wife is returning home, so he is a married man. Rick, what made you do it? Why did you sleep with a married man when his wife was away? She began sobbing again. I did not know. He told me she had left him. But now I know she's in New York doing an internship. She is returning home on Wednesday. I was incredibly stupid, and now I have lost everything. Not exactly everything. You appear to have a secret bank account. Yes, I noticed it as we were dividing our finances. There was £5,000 inside, and only you could touch it. Today had been full of surprises for Erica. She had no idea I'd split our finances, let alone uncovered her stash. I had been saving money for our 25th anniversary. I wanted to take you on a holiday of a lifetime. That will never happen now. So perhaps you should use some of that money as a deposit on an apartment. You have a decent career, so you should have no trouble finding somewhere to live. That's another problem. I lost my job. One of the trustees arrived and discovered us doing it in my office. They saw it as a significant breach of discipline, and I was sacked. The fact that Ron was one of our parents made matters worse. My God, Rick, we males have to think with our small heads. So let's get this straight. You've lost your job, stiffed it, kicked you out, and now you want to come back to me? No. I intended to return to be here for the boys when they arrived home. That's not going to happen now. Why? Do not do this to me, Kevin. These are my boys. You cannot prohibit me from seeing them. I am not attempting to stop you from seeing them. You can see them whenever you want, just not here. There is no place for you here. You made your decision, Rick, and ran away to be with stiff privates. But this is also my home. You cannot kick me out. I did not kick you out. You left voluntarily. There really isn't room for you here right now, or there won't be in a week. But I don't have anywhere to go. I wondered if I could really put her out on the street. How could I stand up to James and Peter if I did this? Obviously, I needed to do something. I will tell you, Rick, that you can stay for 6 days. You are welcome to sleep at Peter's room throughout those 6 days. Once you've found a place to live, you'll move out. The lads can visit you whenever they wish. Her expression expressed relief, and I could see the beginnings of a smile. It vanished after my next sentence. I will not give you the keys if you leave, and there will be no one here when you return. You'll have to wait till we return. Is that okay with you? I guess that will be fine. How much is dinner? I told her what I had offered Erica, but I didn't need to bother. She had previously heard pretty much everything. She got to work, creating a delectable moussaka. Erica also complimented her on her food after supper. When our routine interrupted, I brought Erica's bag to Peter's room and left her to unpack. Eugenia and I settled down on the couch to watch television. Erica went downstairs, but after a while decided to return to her room. As soon as she departed, Eugenia murmured into my ear, I have something special planned for tonight. So what would that be? I realized. I took her hand and brought her into the bedroom. We went right down to it. After a while, we fell asleep, waking up the following morning. I went to the restroom. As soon as I came out of the shower, there were raised voices in the kitchen. I opened the restroom door to see what they were discussing. It wasn't clear enough to see what was being discussed, so I went to the top of the stairs. You're wasting time. Erica said he loves me. He has put 20 years in me. We have 2 sons. He cannot ignore that. Why not? I mean, you loved him, I said to myself after hearing this. Eugenia knew exactly how to hit the sore. It was just an outburst. He will forgive me eventually, and once he does, you'll be history. Why do you think he'll be able to forgive you? You turned your back on him when he needed you the most. He will forgive me because he loves me. I had already reached the bottom of the stairs when I heard a slap. I was still saturated in sweat. Walk inside the kitchen. Erica jumped out of there. I grabbed her arm. What's going on? She said nothing. She just ripped her arm out and rushed up the stairs. I walked into the kitchen and noticed Eugenia caressing her cheek as she approached me. Tears filled her eyes. Is it true what she said? Will you forgive her and accept her back? Yes and no. What kind of response is that? I pulled her against me, getting her robe wet. I lifted her chin and kissed her softly. I'm very irritated with her right now, but I know it will pass. So, yeah, I forgive her. Hatred is an extremely unpleasant emotion. However, do not mix forgiveness with forgetting. I'll never forget what she did. That implies there's no going back. I gave her 1 week, and that is all she will receive. If you want eggs and bacon, you are welcome. Eugenia and I will have fruit, yogurt, and bread. She paused before putting the skillet away. I can't believe this. You have never turned down a fried breakfast before. Yes, but much has changed. I prefer the concept of staying alive. Look, I apologize about earlier. I was slightly annoyed by your performance last night. You didn't need to rub my nose in it. I truly don't understand what you mean. Of course you do. You are not telling me that all of the ranting last night was normal. Eugenia is quite noisy. However, she may have shouted louder than usual last night, but it doesn't matter. Your actions this morning were outrageous. I will not allow that, no matter how loud she is. If you lift your hand at her one more time, your feet will not touch the ground as you exit that door. You will respect her for the duration of your stay in this home. She is no match for you. Kevin, how old is she? 30? She will want a family, and you cannot give her that. She knows everything, and if we decide to have a family, I'll have a vasectomy. Eugenia returned, and we had a very relaxing breakfast. after which I told Erica that she needed to get started looking for a house. You can't do it, Kevin. I own this house just as much as you do. You cannot kick me out. Do you want half the house? Divorce me. That is not an issue. I had a financial audit completed as soon as I got out of the hospital. That's how I learned about your hidden account. You can receive half of what we were worth at the time. All you need to do is divorce me. That is something I cannot do. I do not believe in divorce until death do us part. That is what we promised. You also pledged to keep yourself just for me. That didn't seem to bother you much. If you desire a divorce, there should be one. I will surely not pay for it. You'll have to go against your self-proclaimed principles. Please do not do this to me, Kevin. I have already made up my mind. If you want your half, divorce me. In the meanwhile, you need a place to live. Of course, she didn't merely go looking for an apartment. By Wednesday, she still hadn't found anything. All of the proposals were too pricey, too far from town, or simply not a suitable fit. She was procrastinating, looking for an excuse to live in a house. When the boys arrived home, I was not surprised. And Wednesday afternoon, we looked at an apartment that was clearly within her price range. She told me she liked it but couldn't afford to pay a deposit or furnish the apartment. I kept Eugene's identity a secret from her, as was the place we had selected to rent particularly. When Erica came up with reasons to say no, I modified the game. I would phone Eugenia and pretend to negotiate. We eventually dropped off some of the furnishings, including Eugene, bed. Thursday night, we transferred Erica's belongings into Eugene. Friday afternoon, I was in my year-old apartment. Peter got home first. He hugged me as he went through the door, then kissed Eugenia on the cheek. Did you hear about Mom? Yeah. She slept in your room till yesterday afternoon. She returned home after what she had done to you. She just returned. Yeah, they expected me to act as if nothing had happened. She did not expect me to inform you. She expected me to act as if everything was normal. You know, Dad, I find it difficult to believe she is the same woman who raised me. How could she have changed so dramatically? You haven't noticed any changes in her. Her life still revolves around you and James. I'm the one she has a problem with. To be honest, my wants and needs haven't been important to her for years. I didn't notice. I started giving in to her because I loved her so much. Later, I did it to provide myself a calm existence. I did not want you to grow up arguing with your parents. So I let things go, allowing her to act in her own way. I now see that I was gradually losing the little respect she had for me. Peter hugged me again. There were tears in his eyes. I'm very proud of you, Dad, James and I. But you did everything incorrectly. We observed what was going on. We hoped you would persevere and get your way, but you never did. I was addicted. I adored both her and you boys. I would have done anything to keep what I had. Like an addict, I had to reach rock bottom to push myself to change. I sure made it. And once there, the only way home was without your mother. James returned home the next day. I expected a phone call requesting me to pick him up from the station. This time, he was picked up by a gorgeous female in an ancient Vauxhall Nova. I opened the door and hugged him. His first words surprised me. Eugenia stepped out to greet him. She stood on tiptoes and only had time to kiss his cheek. Hello, James. It's so nice to finally meet you. James took a step away from her. So, you must be the Greek cheater. My mother told me about James. I shouted. You appear to have forgotten your manners. I suggest you return and get some. He looked at me, and a smile slowly spread across his face. Sorry, Dad. Mom contacted me last night and told me you kicked her out and replaced her with some Greek cheater. According to her, your heart attack is something and nothing. Definitely not something to worry about. I couldn't resist making a little fun of it. He put his arm around Eugenia and kissed her cheek. Hello, Eugenia. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Thank you so much for taking care of my father. He looked back at me and studied my face. That wasn't funny, was it? I'm sorry, Dad. No, James, it wasn't funny. But it does. Give me some thoughts. I want you both to go and see your mother. You may not agree with what she's done lately, but she's still your mother. For 20 years, she's done a darn good job of raising you. And then they spent the first week with me before starting summer work. I know they visited their mother at least once they started work. I didn't see them much more often than not. They were off somewhere, but they assured me that they saw Erica once a week. Eugenia and I took a little vacation. 3 weeks in Cyprus. Of course, I met the whole family, and I mean the whole family. Uncles and aunts, grandparents, cousins and cousins. They threw 2 parties in our honor, and I had to learn how to dance. Eugenia had a great time once she managed to stop the pestering from her relatives about my marriage at the farewell party. Her father and brother took me aside. Both men clapped me on the back, but the sudden change in conversation caught me off guard. "I love you, Kevin. Her father told me I love you like you're my own son, Giannis. He loves you like a brother, my Eugenia. She loves you with a passion that you Brits will never understand. But I tell you this, if you hurt my girl, I will kill you." "That's right. Giannis, isn't it?" Giannis nodded his head. "Yes, we will kill you, but not now." "What about Neville?" I asked. "He hurt her. I'll tell you this, if he ever comes to Cyprus, we'll kill him," her father said. "My brother works in airport security. If he comes here, I will be informed." Giannis agreed. "If we go to England, we'll find him and kill him." He clapped me on the back again. "We don't talk about it anymore. Now we dance. Go, go." The bouzouki band started playing a tune I only know as Zorba in Greek, and we went back to the dance floor with our arms around each other's shoulders. We danced one by one. All the other men joined us that night as I went to bed. I mentioned Eugenia's threats. She laughed. "He doesn't really mean he's going to kill you. That's a figure of speech we have when a Cypriot says he's going to kill you. It means he's very angry with you. If everyone who said that killed someone, we wouldn't have anyone left alive." That comforted me a little, but I was still relieved when we got on the plane and flew home. When classes began in September, the doctors declared me fit for work. Eugenia and I appearing together was perplexing, but other than that, nothing much had changed. In October, Peter and James returned to the university. The house became quiet, except for the noise of our lovemaking. Throughout the summer vacation, Erica had barely left my mind, so I was surprised when she called me. "What's the problem, Erica?" I asked. "Not an issue. I wanted to talk to you for a while. I found a job. That's good news. What are you planning to do? The same thing I used to do. Run a daycare center. So what do you need from me? Do you need a recommendation or something else?" "No, Kevin, nothing like that. The job in Taunton. I'm going to move in with my sister until I get back on my feet. I was wondering if you could give me a ride to the station. Are you sure you don't want to take a cab? I'll pay if you're a little short. No, really, I'd like you to drive me if you can. It will give us a chance to talk one last time." "All right, when I can. Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon, okay? I'll do Tuesday morning." "Thanks, Kevin." Eugenia was sure that Erica had an ulterior motive. I wanted her out of my life. I hoped she wanted to talk about the divorce, but maybe that was too much to hope for. The weekend flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was Tuesday morning, and I was already outside Erica's apartment. She came out to meet me and invited me to come in for a cup of coffee. We sat for a while before she started talking. "I've been a selfish jerk, haven't I? You're not going to get a rebuttal from me about that. It's all the same, Kevin. Don't sugarcoat the situation. Just tell me straight." "Well, you did ask." "Yes, I did. Tell me, Kevin, are you happy? Does she make you happy?" "Yes." "She really cares about what I want. We don't fight for control all the time. Is that how you envisioned our relationship?" "Not at the time, no. But lying in the hospital, I had a lot of time to think about it." "So, yes, that's how I see it now. Why is it not like that?" "I didn't understand at the time, but I do now. I've always loved you, Kev, but somewhere along the line I lost respect for you. Every time there was a conflict, you backed down. I complained about your music. You stopped playing it. I refused to go to bike hangouts with you. You stopped going. Come on, Rick. You didn't just complain about my music. You walked into the room and turned it off. When I argued about it, you'd start. What's that awful noise? The neighbors will think you're killing me. You jumped all over me. I didn't want the boys to see us fighting, so I gave up. It didn't seem like such a big deal when it comes to bike racing. You realize it was more than just your reluctance to ride. I remember all emotional blackmail. The stories about how boys need shoes while I was having fun attending race meetings. You told me I was always too busy to spend time at home, but could carve out a weekend to go to the races. I worked long hours to give you what you said you needed. I stopped going to races because, honestly, the choice was between that and giving up my family. And I couldn't bear the thought of losing my boys. Looking back, I wish I had given up something you didn't like. Along with everything I gave up. A piece of Kevin Johnson died. I wasn't me anymore. I was just your husband who did whatever you wanted. I actually liked being at work. At least there I felt important. My coworkers respected me. My students looked up to me, and 20-something girls flirted with me at home. I was completely under your control, but that didn't change anything. In fact, it got worse, even when you kept getting your way. I watched the tears roll down her face. She was silent a while. Then she wiped her eyes and looked at me. I'm sorry, Kevin. I can't tell you why I did what I did. Probably because of Mom and Dad. They've always had a tumultuous relationship. I guess I thought it was normal. My mom would provoke my dad. They'd fight and then make up a couple of days later when I provoked you. You just kept quiet and kept it to yourself. I started to see you as some kind of weakling. Even my father fought back more often than you did. As I recall, he abandoned your mother when you were 12. Didn't that teach you anything? If that's your idea of what marriage should be, I wish you had told me that from the beginning. We could have both avoided a lot of heartache. I'll tell you, Rick, that the moment your attraction went crazy, I was ready to give up everything. If we made love once a month, that would be unusual. And that's only if you had a drink or two. You didn't even like me touching you. Do you have any idea what constant rejection does to a man? We were so far apart and I could see it was getting worse, but I supported you. I thought that when we were alone, things would either get better or we'd have to break up. That all changed when you suddenly became affectionate again. I really thought there was hope for us. I soon found out it was all about you again. You wanted to entertainment and I was just the most convenient source. She sobbed again, and I sat in silence as she picked herself up again. Eventually, she managed to get a few words out. I'm sorry, Kevin. I actually am. I didn't realize how bad it was until I remembered how I treated you when things started going wrong for you. I should have made sure you saw a doctor. I was too consumed with my own needs to realize what that meant for you. I was looking for instant relief and gave you Viagra. My God, I could have killed you. I don't blame you for being mad at me. The things I did and said to you were unforgivable. I don't know what came over me. I really thought I could do whatever I wanted, and you would just accept it. I looked at my watch. What time is your train? Shouldn't we be moving out? The express from Exeter arrives at the station at 11:15. I need to be there by then. I'll get my bag and we'll be on our way. I carried her bag to the car. She seemed a little light to me as I passed her car. Another question visited me. Why are you taking the train? Why don't you drive and take all your stuff with you? You know, I don't like traveling long distances. Besides, it's almost impossible to park in Taunton, and Julie's house is a stone's throw from the daycare center. I've offered the car to James if he wants it. If not, perhaps you can sell it for me. I nodded in agreement and got in the car as Erica got in. She smiled at me with such a warm and loving smile that I recoiled a little. I didn't need to ask. I can see that she makes you happy. You have that sparkle again, that sparkle in your eyes that you had when I fell in love with you. I wondered what happened to her. I guess over the years, I must have just etched it out of you. I'm glad she's back. The rush hour traffic had thinned, and I got her to the station in no time. I found a spot in a short-term parking lot, and we sat in the car just looking at each other. It's really too late. US, isn't it, Kevin? Yeah, you've gone too far this time. There's no going back. Why don't you just divorce me and be done with it? She stroked my cheek. I can't do that, Kevin. My love, until death do us part. I made a vow, and I'm not going to break it again. I will always be your wife, even if you divorce me. I shook my head, getting out of the car and grabbing her bag. We walked hand in hand into the station building and onto the platform. There's no need to. Wait, you need to get back to work. I nodded and turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Tell the boys I love them. Tell them yourself. Taunton isn't that far away. Stop pretending, Kevin. They only come to me because you send them. Give them time. They'll come around. She reached up to my neck, pulled my head down, and kissed me with a passion I didn't realize I had. When we broke the kiss, she whispered, I love you, Kevin Johnson, and I'm going to let you go now. Get out, before I burst into tears. There was water in my eyes as I turned and walked away. You can't part with 20 years without sadness. I got in my car and without thinking. I started the engine and drove off, just as I parked in the college parking lot. The phone rang. It was Eugenia, and I answered it immediately. Did she leave? I believe so. I left her on the platform waiting for the express to exit her. She should be on her way by now. I doubt it. The express doesn't stop at Braunstone Junction and go to Taunton. Are you sure that's the train she was taking? Well, she said it was the one she was waiting for. My God. What is it, Kevin? What's wrong? I can't talk right now, Jean. I have to get back to the station. I dropped the phone, started the car, and drove out of the parking lot with a squeal of tires. I'm surprised I didn't get arrested for driving on my way back to the station. I was breaking the speed limit and running red lights, anything to get to the station faster. As soon as I pulled up to the entrance, I realized I was too late. There were police cars and an ambulance in front of the entrance. I left the car in the parking lot and ran to the entrance. The mesh gate was closed and locked. A few minutes after I started banging on the gate and yelling, a police officer approached me. There has been an incident, sir. The station is closed. What kind of incident? My wife is on the platform. I'm afraid that's all I can tell you, sir. I must now ask you to leave. I had no idea what to do next, and more out of routine than anything else. I went back to work. It's amazing how well you can work in a state of shock. It's like an airplane flying on automatic pilot. That's how it is for me. Shutting myself off from every possible option and performing the familiar activities of the day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The department chair walked into my lab. Mr. Johnson, you are expected in my office. I will cover the rest of the class and deal with the rest of your day when I got to his office. I was not surprised to find the same police officer I had met at the station standing next to him was Eugenia. He asked me to sit down and told me the bad news. Witnesses claimed that some man said an affectionate goodbye to her on the platform. She looked upset after he left as the express train roared through the station. She calmly turned and stepped off the platform into its path. She didn't stand a chance. The funeral was not lavish. James gave the eulogy. I noticed a couple in the back of the church, 2 people I didn't know as the casket being carried out. I approached them to thank them for coming. They tried to leave, but the door was blocked by the casket and the porters when I held out my hand to thank them for coming. The man burst into tears and between sobs said how sorry he was. I'm so sorry, I said. I know you, he's sobbing. So his wife spoke up for him. No, you don't know us, Mr. Johnson. My husband was on the train. He's been acting like that ever since. I told him it was a bad idea, but he said he had to come. I rushed over to the man and hugged him, patting him on the back. I spoke to him. It's not your fault, old boy. She just took advantage of your train to do what she wanted to do. There was nothing you could have done, nothing any of us could have done. His wife squeezed my hand. Thank you, she said, and led her husband away. There were more tears at the graveside, some sincere, others not. Both of my sons were visibly upset. The pastor said what he had to say, though. I heard nothing. We all threw our bits of earth on the casket, and one by one people left. A fine drizzle began to fall, and I was left alone looking at the coffin. You know, Rick, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I was supposed to be the one lying there while you stood here gloating about stiff privates moving into our house, for that matter. I never thought much of the train driver. I guess I was just as selfish as you were at that moment. Don't worry. I'll watch our boys. You know they love you. And I guess in a way I do too. I certainly didn't want it to end this way. I threw the last handful of dirt on the coffin and left. Eugenia was waiting for me at the churchyard gate. She held open the door of the limousine that was to take us home. James and Peter were waiting in the car. You're going to have to be strong for these 2, she said, and I'll be strong for you. 3 weeks passed before the boys returned to the university. The colleges urged them to do the full term, but I think they wanted to get bogged down in work. I insisted that they communicate with a counselor weekly when they were gone. I felt like I could give an outlet for my grief, as Eugenia reminded me. I had lost 22 years of my life. I had someone I loved and with whom I had once planned to grow old. It was normal to feel the loss whenever I cried. She was always there to support me. Of course, made me love her even more. And within 3 months, I asked her to marry me. Mom, Dad, and Janice are coming to the wedding. If I were Neville, I wouldn't get distracted. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you enjoyed this essay, please like it and subscribe if you have not already. If you have a story to share regarding your or someone else's situation, please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.